To start out, this hack involves holding the nut in place for long enough to line it up with the bolts. A piece of double-sided tape should do the trick. It's hard to hammer out these nails when the board keeps moving. Try hammering it through this hole in the plywood. To mark even lines on pipes and tubing, attach a metal to the side of this marker. Here's a quick way to make a DIY funnel. Simply attach a PVC pipe to the top half of a plastic bottle. If you can't decide between screws or nails, screws don't have the shear strength that nails have, so in this case, nails will be the better option. Here's a great way to store your chainsaw. Slice open some foam tubing, then wrap it around the chainsaw chain and secure it with some tape. Here's a little close-up of an interesting way to solder two wires together. Next, we'll build a flashlight using this rechargeable 12-volt drill battery. First, we'll cut out a slot for the on and off switch. Then we'll attach these disconnects to the LED wires and crimp them with a crimping tool. Drill a hole into the top of the flashlight and pass the LED wires through the hole. The wires should be able to reach the slot. Attach the on and off switch and press the switch into the slot. Attach the other ends of the wire to the battery. Now we just plug in the LED bulb. Let's take a look at some different types of anchors and how they actually anchor themselves into the wall from the other side. Here's a life hack that works on cheap locks. Slap the side of the lock with a magnet to release the latch and open the lock. If we fold over this nail with a pair of pliers and then repeat it a few times, we can make this beautiful piece of art. Although it's easy enough to make a straight line using a ruler, it's almost impossible to make a straight cut without using a guide. So let's make a guide for our jigsaw. Make a straight line across a board and mark the center of where the jigsaw blade is. Now drill a 1-inch hole centered on that mark. Cut the board in half along the straight line. And to make sure the edge is straight, we can plane off this inner edge. Remove the two bolts from one side of the jigsaw and lay down some double-sided tape. Lay the larger piece of board so that the smaller board can be lined up on the tape. Now we can drill holes into the board where the screws would go. Remove the board and drill larger holes for the longer screws. Now we'll screw the board into the bottom of the jigsaw and reinsert the blade. Next, we'll draw our line and clamp a board with its edge lined up to the mark. Now we have a guide that cuts right on the line every time. Here we have some old clippers. We can sharpen them by sliding a piece of fine grit sandpaper between the two blades. Turn on the clippers and move the sandpaper around to bring the blades back to their former sharpness. When sanding, sawdust can gather in corners and edges. To prevent this, we can place a drywall knife along the edge as we sand. Drilling holes directly into metal like this can leave a rough and uneven hole. By placing the metal sheet between two pieces of wood, drilling becomes much easier and neater. Sometimes our PVC pipe doesn't match the fitting. We can use this socket fusion tool to connect these pieces together. We'll use this for our selfie stick. Drill some screws into a small board so that your phone can slide in and out. Then mount a PVC clip onto the back. Now we can mount 2 more clips into the wall and attach our selfie stick. And if your camera isn't mounting to the wall like it should, you can rub some fresh garlic to the inside of the suction cup. Our wire here is a bit loose. Luckily, it's an easy fix. Just cut off both ends of the cable clip and hammer it back with a nail. Next, we're making a duster drill bit. Cut the slits into both ends of one piece of paper and leave the other one whole. Create a notch in the dowel and glue 2 pieces of paper inside this notch. Now we can dust off our woodworking projects. Sometimes it's better to keep things simple. Here we're using a metal plate and a zip tie as an anchor to secure this pipe to the wall. Instead of throwing away this old shovel, we can turn it into a post hole digger. Scrape off the rust and cut off the shovel blade into a square. Use a vise to straighten the edges and then bend it back into a cylinder shape. Hit it with a few coats of spray paint and now you can start digging. To make it easier to find the end of the tape, most people just fold the tape back on itself, creating a tab. Instead of folding the tape on itself and leaving a tab of unused tape, it's better to fold the tape backwards. It makes the tape easier to grab, and the result is less unused tape. We can make a temporary foam brush to apply wood stain by clipping this small sponge. We can also use another clothespin to remove the old sponge and keep our hands clean. Here's a quick makeshift utility knife. Hot glue a razor blade to the teeth of a comb and let it dry. Now we can cut things like paper, aluminum foil, and foam. Here's a little trick if you have a screw that keeps slipping. Grab a piece of duct tape and put it on the end of a drill bit. Press down firmly. That should give it some extra bite. Every project could use an extra pair of hands. But what can we do if we don't have an assistant? We can build a simple stand using 2 pieces of wood, a single hinge, and some 100 grit sandpaper. We're going to use this extra piece of 2x4 to adjust the height of the stand to the appropriate height. If you need to reseal a glass bottle, we can cut off the top of a plastic bottle and then use a lighter to heat the plastic around it until it shrinks around the edge of the glass bottle. We can turn this old bike chain into an adjustable homemade wrench. We'll secure some square tubing in a vise and weld on one of the ends of the chain to the outside. Then tuck the remainder of the chain inside the square tube. When ready to use, pull out the chain to the appropriate length, squeeze, and then twist. It looks like this chair is a little worn out. We can make use of the legs by turning them into a spray paint turntable. This one is extremely simple. We're not even securing the pieces together. But you can add complexity to fit the needs of your projects. Next, we're making a DIY door closer to prevent the door from being slammed. Essentially, we're welding a nut to some rebar and then welding a spring perpendicular to the rebar. Next, we'll create a frame to hold everything together. Secure the spring, then pass the bolt through the nut like so, and secure it on both ends. Now we'll mount the door closer to the wall, then pass the rebar through the bracket and mount the bracket itself to the door. Now let's build a portable light bulb. Cut off the end of the extension cord for the plug. Glue the base of the light bulb to the plug and wrap the electrical wires around the appropriate screws and tighten. Twist on the casing and screw in the light bulb. Plug it in directly to the outlet. Our wooden clamps aren't as stable as we'd like them to be. We can fix that with a little bit of foam. Cut out some hand-sized blocks using a utility knife. Then heat the bar with a blowtorch. Now press the heated bar onto the foam block and then remove it. We'll repeat this a few more times, and now we've got some foam block stands. Sometimes glue dries and gets stuck in the nozzle, making it difficult to open. We can cut an oval-shaped wood tab to make things easier. Insert the nozzle into the wooden tab and then attach the nozzle back onto the lid. This gives us a little extra leverage. Here's a quick way to hold 2 pieces of wood together while the glue dries. Attach binder clips to one end and then hold everything in place by wrapping rubber bands around the 2 pieces of wood. You can wrap this wire around the thread of a bolt to make a little spring.